Guys, my name is Neel and welcome to Neel Workshop Zone. So in this episode we're going to be talking about how to install Python and input and output statements. So I haven't basically talked about how to install Python. So yeah, today we're going to be roughly talking about how to install Python. So different OS like Windows or Mac or Linux have different ways to install Python. So now I'll just be talking about how to install it in Windows 10. So if you have any doubts, you can just type it in Google or you can just search it on YouTube. So first of all, yeah, you need to open Google and type Python. So after typing Python, you'll get a lot of searches, but mostly the first search that you'll get something like Python. So after clicking it, it leads you to a page. It has a lot of details on it, but on mostly the right side, you must have something like install Python 3.9 etc. So that is how you install it. Now if you have a version of OS like Windows 7 or Windows 7 32-bit etc., then you can't use the newer versions. Then there will be an option below it that says for older functions click here. So if you have a Windows 10, you can download it, but if you don't, you can click here and download a somewhat older version of it. So after clicking download, it downloads it, and after downloading, it leads to a simple setup, and you can just click next and finish. So after that, just to check if Python has been successfully installed in your computer, you can open CMD or command prompt. You can just click on the search tab, the search tab that you have, and you can just search CMD as a shortcut, and it will display the command prompt. So after clicking on the command prompt, you can type something like, for example, you can type Python dash version. So after typing Python dash version, it will show something like Python version 3.9.2 etc. Then it means that Python has been successfully installed. But if it shows something like file has not been found or anything related to that, it must mean that you must have done something wrong. So you must take your steps again. So after finding it, you can just go back to the program that you have run, and if you check, you can see that there is a text editor that you can use to write Python code, basically like Notepad. So there you can type code, like you can type something like print print hello, and it prints it. So that is basically how you do it. We'll talk about more of how to do code and etc. in our practical episode, which will be coming out either next week or so. So that is basically how to install Python. So now that we talked about how to install Python, let's talk about input and output functions. So now let's talk about input and output statements. It's not functions. Functions has some other meaning. It's mostly the same, but functions also include a lot of other things. We'll talk about them in like the future. So if you haven't learned Java or C++ before, you must have heard about scanner. So that is basically what input. So if you haven't heard about Java C++ scanner, then input is basically asking the user during runtime. Asking the user some question or something during the runtime. So for example, when you write a normal code, you can write something like A is equals to 12. Print A. But by using the input functions, for this code that I have written here, the output that you get is 12. But by using input functions, it can ask the user directly about what do you want the number to be written as. So for example, let's take num is equals to int, so which stands for integer. And imagine in that integer we put something like so you can put something like int, and in int you can put input, and in here you can put type a number, and you can close the brackets. So to understand what I've written here, first we have written number, to just to show that this is a number, because you cannot accept, the program doesn't accept numbers from us. It only accepts strings. So you can't type something like input is equals to input 23 23, and add something, etc. So you have to write something like input, just to make the computer understand that that we are writing a input of that it's expecting a number from the user. So we have type in input, and we can write type here in brackets. So we'll talk about the brackets and semicolons in our output statement. So after typing like this, you can type something like add +1. So basically what I've written here is when you give a number to the program, it must add +1. So for example, after clicking enter, it will ask you type number, and after asking you type number, you can type something like let's take 17. So after typing 17 and click enter, it will immediately show 18. So it basically added an extra number to the number that you have given. So that is basically how input statements work. They ask you during the runtime about what to do in the what to do. So these will get really useful. You can create quizzes and a lot of really cool things. So now that we talked about what input statement is, let's talk about output statement. So now let's talk about output statement. So if you learn about Java, C++, again, you can see something like, for example, you can see system.out print in Java or print, etc. So this is output is basically the print statement. And for if you don't have a Java, C++, output statement basically means print. So print can be used for printing the answer. Like I have written before where I showed print. For example, you can do something like print. You have to create in brackets just to make the computer know that you are writing it. That this is the word that you need to print, and you can write something like hi. Now the reason that there are brackets and these, it's basically because it makes the computer understand that this needs to be print and has nothing to do with the rest of the code. So it basically is saying that hi is has nothing to do with code. It has it doesn't has any value. It's just its own string, and we want it to print it. So the output is hi. But if you remove this and write no code and print it, it will probably show an error saying hi is not specified. So that is basically how print statement works. Now if you're writing something like an addition code, like for example, you're writing something like a is equals to 2, b is equals to 3, c is equals to a plus b, print c. Then if you keep semicolons, if you keep this, it will only show the output will be c. Instead of adding these both numbers and showing 5, it will only show c. So that is why while doing something like this, so when you specify the string or the integer beforehand, like if you have mentioned it, then you can write it without colons so that it prints the actual value. So if you remove the the brackets, not brackets, but if you remove them, the output will be 5 because it adds 2 plus 3. So that is basically how the print statement works. There are a lot more things and a lot more explanation. So we'll talk about this mostly in the practical episode because we can practically see how it actually works. But this is basically how it works. This might be a really short video, but it is a really important one. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out any new videos. And that's all folks, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.